Understanding human greed. Why desire is the root of suffering in Buddhism. The teachings of the Buddha center around the Four Noble Truths, which explain the nature of suffering and how to overcome it. The second noble truth, samudaya, the origin of suffering, reveals that suffering arises from desire, tanha. This craving, whether for material things, relationships, or status, keeps us trapped in dissatisfaction, always wanting more and never feeling content. Among the many forms of desire, greed, or lobha plays a major role. It is one of the three poisons, akusala mula, along with hatred, dosa, and delusion, moha. These poisons cloud our minds, drive our actions, and keep us stuck in the endless cycle of samsara, the cycle of birth, death, and rebirth. Understanding greed, its causes, and its consequences is essential to freeing ourselves from suffering. Chapter 1. The Nature of Greed in Buddhist Philosophy. To truly understand greed in Buddhism, we first need to define it. The word used in Buddhist philosophy for greed is lobha. Lobha is the desire to possess or hold on to something, whether it's material things like money and belongings, emotional things like relationships, or even abstract things like power, status, or recognition. Greed isn't always obvious. Sometimes, it can appear as simple as wanting a bigger house, a new phone, or praise from others. Other times, it can show up as something more subtle, like the craving to always be right, or the attachment to someone who makes us feel special. At the heart of greed is attachment. This attachment comes from a misunderstanding, a belief that the things we desire can bring us lasting happiness, or that we, as individuals, are permanent and unchanging. This is where Buddhism identifies ignorance, avidya, as the root cause of greed. When we are ignorant of the truth, that everything in life is impermanent, and that there is no fixed, unchanging self, anatta, we become attached to things that are constantly changing. We hold on to them, thinking they will bring us security, comfort, or joy. Buddhism also makes an important distinction between two types of desires. Not all desires are harmful. In fact, there are wholesome desires, chanda, and unwholesome desires, tanha. Wholesome desires include things like the wish to grow spiritually, to help others, or to develop wisdom and compassion. These desires come from a pure intention and do not lead to attachment or suffering. On the other hand, unwholesome desires, tanha, come from craving and greed. Tanha is when we want something because we think it will make us complete or fill a void inside us. It's the thirst for things that can never truly satisfy us. The Buddha often described tanha as a fire that burns within us. When we crave, we feel restless, unsatisfied, and constantly driven to chase after more. In the fire sermon, the Buddha said, "The mind is burning, the body is burning, the senses are burning." Burning with what? Burning with the fire of craving, the fire of greed, the fire of delusion. Just like fire consumes everything in its path but is never satisfied, greed consumes our thoughts, actions, and lives, yet we always want more. To better understand how greed works, we can look at its connection to the false self, atta. In Buddhism, there is no permanent, unchanging self. However, we often cling to the idea of me and mine. We think, this is my car, my house, my partner, my achievement. These attachments strengthen our sense of ego and make us believe that we are separate and different from everything else. The more we attach to this self, the more greed arises, because we feel the need to protect, grow, and satisfy this false identity. But what happens when we base our happiness on things that are impermanent? Let's say you're attached to a brand new phone. You feel happy when you get it, but over time, it gets old, or maybe it breaks. Your happiness disappears, and you start craving the next new phone. This is how greed works. It tricks us into believing that we can find happiness in things that are always changing. And when those things inevitably fail to satisfy us, we feel disappointment and suffering. Greed is not just about material possessions. It can also be the craving for experiences, relationships, or emotions. Maybe you crave someone's love or approval, thinking it will make you happy. Or maybe you chase success and status because you believe they define your worth. These cravings, too, are rooted in the false belief that external things can bring us lasting joy. The Buddha taught us to look inward and see that true happiness comes not from what we have, but from freeing ourselves from attachment. Understanding greed means recognizing that it arises from within us, not from the things we desire. The problem isn't the house, the phone, or the relationship. It's the attachment to them. When we let go of attachment, we can still enjoy life and its pleasures, but we do so without clinging. We accept that things are temporary, and that happiness doesn't depend on holding on to them forever. Chapter 2: How Desire Leads to Suffering. Now that we understand the nature of greed, let's explore how it creates suffering. In Buddhism, the word tanha is often translated as craving or thirst. The Buddha taught that craving is the cause of suffering because it leads to clinging, upadana. We cling to things, people, and experiences because we believe they will bring us happiness or security. But the truth is, when we cling to anything, we set ourselves up for suffering. Imagine holding on to a rope that's burning your hand. The tighter you hold, the more pain you feel. This is what happens when we cling to desires. The desire itself becomes a source of pain. We crave something, and when we don't get it, we feel frustration, anger, or sadness. Even when we do get what we want, the satisfaction doesn't last. Sooner or later, we start craving something else, or we fear losing what we have. The Buddha gave a powerful example of this in the parable of the mustard seed. A woman named 𝐂𝐴 Gautami lost her only child and was overwhelmed with grief. She went to the Buddha, asking him to bring her son back to life. The Buddha told her to collect a mustard seed from a household that had never experienced death. She searched from house to house, but found that every family had lost someone they loved. Through this, she realized the truth of impermanence. Everything and everyone in life is subject to change and loss. Clinging to what we cannot keep only brings us more suffering. The Buddha also taught that greed and attachment are closely tied to impermanence, anicca. Everything in life, our possessions, our relationships, even our own bodies, is constantly changing. When we cling to these things, we are fighting against reality. We want them to stay the same, but they never do. This is why the Buddha said, "All conditioned things are impermanent." When one sees this with wisdom, one becomes weary of suffering. This is the path to purity. Take, for example, a beautiful flower. It blooms and brings joy, but over time, it wilts and dies. If we cling to its beauty, we feel sadness when it fades. But if we appreciate it without attachment, we can enjoy its beauty in the present moment, knowing it will not last forever. Greed also leads to an endless cycle of dissatisfaction. When we crave something and get it, the happiness we feel is temporary. Soon, we start wanting something else. This is why the Buddha compared craving to drinking salty water. The more we drink, the thirstier we become. No matter how much we acquire, it is never enough. This cycle of craving, clinging, and suffering keeps us trapped in samsara, the cycle of birth, death, and rebirth. Understanding how desire leads to suffering allows us to break free from its grip. The Buddha did not say we should stop enjoying life or having goals. Instead, he taught us to let go of attachment. When we desire something, we can ask ourselves, am I clinging to this? Do I believe this will bring me lasting happiness? By seeing things as they truly are, impermanent and unsatisfactory, we can begin to loosen our attachment and find peace. Ultimately, the path to freedom lies in understanding the nature of our desires and learning to let go. As the Buddha said, craving brings sorrow, and craving brings fear. If one is free from craving, there is no sorrow. How then can there be fear? When we let go of greed and attachment, we free ourselves from suffering and find true contentment. Chapter 3. The Three Poisons and the Cycle of Samsara. In Buddhism, greed is not something that exists by itself. It works hand in hand with two other forces: hatred, dosa, and delusion, moha. Together, these three are called the three poisons, akusala mula, or the three roots of unwholesome actions. These poisons fuel our suffering and keep us trapped in samsara, the cycle of birth, death, and rebirth. Let's look at how the three poisons work together. Imagine you see something you want, a new car, for example. You feel greed because you believe owning that car will make you happy. If someone gets in the way of your desire, maybe they buy the car before you. Anger, hatred, arises. You might think, they don't deserve it. It should have been mine. Both greed and anger are rooted in delusion, the mistaken belief that the car will bring lasting happiness and that your sense of self is real and permanent. The Buddha often compared these poisons to a dangerous illness. He said, greed, hatred, and delusion are the destroyers of the self, just as a disease destroys the body. Greed pulls us to desire and cling. Hatred pushes us to reject or destroy what we don't like. Delusion blinds us from seeing things as they truly are. Together, these three forces trap us in unwise actions that create suffering for ourselves and others. How the three poisons fuel samsara. The Buddha taught that our actions, driven by the three poisons, create karma. Karma refers to our intentional actions, whether through thought, speech, or behavior, that leave an impact. Positive actions create good karma, while unwholesome actions create bad karma. When we act out of greed, hatred, or delusion, we create negative karma, which leads to future suffering. For example, let's say someone lies or cheats to get more money. This action comes from greed and creates harmful consequences, either in this life or in the next. According to Buddhist teachings, karma determines our experiences in the cycle of samsara. If our minds are ruled by the three poisons, we are continually reborn into conditions that reflect this unwholesome state of mind. The wheel of life, Pavakakra, is a famous Buddhist symbol that shows how samsara works. At the center of the wheel, you will find a pig, a snake, and a rooster, representing delusion, hatred, and greed. They chase each other endlessly, showing that the three poisons feed one another and keep the wheel turning. The more we act out of greed, hatred, or delusion, the more we stay caught in samsara. The Buddha offered a simple but powerful teaching. What you think, you become. What you feel, you attract. What you imagine, you create. If we allow greed to dominate our thoughts, it shapes our actions and keeps us trapped in the cycle of suffering. But the good news is that we can break free. By understanding how the three poisons work and training our minds, we can stop feeding them and start moving toward liberation, breaking the cycle. The first step to freeing ourselves from samsara is recognizing how the three poisons arise in our lives. Are we clinging to something because we think it will make us happy? Are we pushing something away because we find it unpleasant? Are we avoiding reality because it feels too uncomfortable to face? By becoming aware of these habits, we can start to change them. When greed arises, we can ask ourselves, will this really satisfy me? Or is it just another craving that will leave me empty? When anger arises, we can pause and reflect. Why am I so attached to this? What am I trying to protect? And when we feel confused or lost, we can seek clarity by turning to the Buddha's teachings. The Buddha taught that the path to liberation begins with wisdom, seeing things as they truly are. When we realize that greed, hatred, and delusion only lead to suffering, we naturally become less attached to them. Like letting go of a hot coal, we stop holding on to what harms us and start living with more peace, understanding, and compassion. Chapter 4. Recognizing and Understanding. Greed within oneself. Before we can overcome greed, we must first learn to recognize it in ourselves. This is not always easy because greed can take many forms. Sometimes it's obvious, like craving money, food, or possessions. Other times, it's more subtle, like wanting praise, recognition, or control over others. No matter how greed appears, it always leads to restlessness, dissatisfaction, and suffering. Becoming aware through mindfulness. The Buddha taught that the key to recognizing greed is mindfulness, sati. Mindfulness is the practice of paying attention to the present moment without judgment. When we are mindful, we can observe our thoughts, feelings, and actions as they arise. We can notice when greed is starting to take hold and pause before it controls us. For example, imagine you're scrolling through social media and see someone with a new house or car. You start to feel jealous or think, I want that too. A mindful person would pause and reflect. Where is this feeling coming from? What am I really seeking? Will this desire bring me happiness? Or is it just another craving? By observing your thoughts without reacting, you create space to let go of greed before it turns into suffering. Meditation as a tool for insight. One of the most powerful tools for understanding and reducing greed is meditation. The Buddha encouraged his followers to practice vipassana meditation, or insight meditation, to see the true nature of reality. Through meditation, we learn to observe our cravings and attachments without getting caught up in them. When you sit in meditation and notice a craving arise, maybe the desire for food, recognition, or pleasure, you can look at it with curiosity. Ask yourself, what does this craving feel like? Is it pleasant or unpleasant? Where do I feel it in my body? What happens if I don't act on it? By observing your cravings without reacting to them, you start to see that they are not permanent. They come and go like waves in the ocean. The Buddha taught that all things are impermanent, anicca, including our thoughts and desires. When we truly understand this, We become less attached to our cravings. We see that chasing after them only leads to more suffering. Understanding the nature of the self. Another way to weaken the grip of greed is to reflect on the nature of the self. In Buddhism, there is no permanent, unchanging self, anatta. The idea of me and mine is an illusion. When we say, "This is my car," or "This is my success," we are strengthening our attachment to a false sense of self. The Buddha taught that what we think of as me is actually a combination of changing factors. Our body, feelings, perceptions, mental formations, and consciousness. These are always changing, like a river that never stays the same. When we understand this, we become less attached to the things we claim as ours. We realize that they are temporary and not truly part of us. As the Buddha said, when you let go of clinging, you let go of suffering. When you release the illusion of self, you find freedom. By reflecting on the nature of the self, we can free ourselves from the greed that comes from attachment. Chapter 5. Greed in the Modern Context. In today's world, greed is more present than ever. Modern society encourages us to consume, compete, and chase after material wealth, status, and success. Advertisements tell us that happiness lies in buying the newest products, earning more money, or achieving a certain lifestyle. Technology and social media amplify this desire by constantly showing us what others have, making us feel that we are lacking. The consequences of modern greed. Excessive greed has serious consequences for individuals, society, and the planet. On a personal level, it leads to stress, anxiety, and dissatisfaction. No matter how much we acquire, there is always something more to want. This endless craving creates restlessness and prevents us from enjoying the present moment. On a societal level, greed leads to inequality, corruption, and exploitation. It encourages people to prioritize profits over ethics, harming those who are vulnerable. On a global level, greed drives environmental destruction. Overconsumption depletes natural resources, causes pollution, and contributes to climate change. The Buddha's teachings are more relevant than ever in addressing these issues. He taught that the root of our problems lies not in external circumstances, but in the mind. If we can reduce greed within ourselves, we can create a more compassionate and sustainable world. Practical steps for applying Buddhist teachings. 1. Practice contentment. Reflect on what you already have and cultivate gratitude. The Buddha said, "Health is the greatest gift. Contentment is the greatest wealth." When we appreciate what we have, we feel less need to chase after more. 2. Simplify your life. Live with fewer possessions and focus on what truly matters. Minimalism aligns with the Buddhist principle of renunciation, letting go of unnecessary attachments. 3. Be generous. Share your time, resources, and kindness with others. Giving not only helps those in need, but also brings joy and freedom to your own heart. 4. Practice mindfulness. Be aware of your cravings and observe them without reacting. When you notice a desire for something, pause and ask yourself, is this necessary? Will it bring me lasting peace? 5. Reflect on impermanence. Remember that all things are temporary. This understanding helps you let go of attachment and focus on what brings true happiness, inner peace, and compassion. Greed is a powerful force, but it is not unbeatable. Through understanding, mindfulness, and the practice of the Noble Eightfold Path, we can overcome greed and find freedom from suffering. The Buddha's teachings remind us that true happiness does not come from acquiring more, but from letting go. By living ethically, practicing generosity, and training our minds, we can create a life of contentment, peace, and wisdom. Liberation is possible. It begins with recognizing the nature of greed, understanding its causes, and taking steps to overcome it. With practice, we can transform our lives and inspire others to do the same.